Imagine this for just a moment. You command one of the most powerful alien fleets in the galaxy. Your empire has ruled the stars for thousands of years. No species has ever challenged you. And then your scanners detect something drifting in deep space. A single human warship, damaged, silent, alone. So you order routine scan. Because what threat could one human ship possibly be? But the moment your sensors finish that scan, you realize something horrifying. The ship was never abandoned. It was waiting for you. And the moment you scanned it, you triggered something you cannot stop. And that was the moment everything changed. At the far edge of the galaxy, near the corpse of a dying star, the void was silent. No trade routes, no colonies, no life, just darkness and drifting debris. It was a kind of place no intelligent species had any reason to visit, except the Zytherian Dominion. For centuries, the Dominion had ruled the galaxy with overwhelming power. Their technology was centuries beyond anything most civilizations could even imagine. Entire star systems surrendered the moment a Zytherian fleet appeared in orbit. Resistance was statistically pointless. And today, the Dominion's 9th Reconnaissance Fleet was conducting a routine patrol to the outer frontier. At the center of the formation drifted their flagship, a colossal vessel nearly 6 kilometers long. On its bridge stood Commander Valek Dar, a veteran of dozens of planetary pacifications. His sharp eyes scanned the glowing holographic map floating above the command platform. Everything was quiet, predictable, routine, and then a voice broke the silence. "Commander, we've detected an unidentified vessel." Valek didn't even look up at first. "Identify." The sensor officer expanded the scan image across the main display. A small ship appeared against the darkness. Scar hull plating, minimal power output, drifting slowly near the gravity well of the dead star. The officer hesitated. "Commander, it appears to be human." Several Zytherian officers exchanged amused glances. Humans, the newest species to crawl onto the galactic stage. Creative, bold, unpredictable, but technologically inferior. Most Dominion strategists consider them more interesting than dangerous. Valek finally looked at the screen. "A human ship this far out?" The sensor officer nodded. "Yes, Commander." Valek studied the image. The vessel looked old, damaged, possibly abandoned. He folded his hands behind his back. Perhaps they've already learned the cost of wandering into Dominion territory. A few officers chuckled. Valek gave the order without a second thought. "Initiate a deep scan." And with that simple command, the fate of his entire fleet was sealed. Blue sensor waves rippled through space as Zytherian scanners activated. Layer after layer of data began flooding the command systems. Hull composition, internal structure, power signatures, weapon systems. Routine, completely routine, until the sensor officer suddenly froze. "Commander," Valek glanced at him. "Yes." The officer leaned closer to the display. "That's strange." Valek stepped forward. "Explain." The officer pulled up the internal layout. Multiple weapon systems detected. Valek shrugged slightly. "It's a warship." "Yes, but these designs are—" He hesitated. "Primitive." Another officer smirked. "Well, it is human." But the sensor officer didn't laugh. "Commander, there's more." Valek's expression hardened. "Continue." Individually, the weapons are outdated. Kinetic cannons, rail launchers, experimental emitters. Valek frowned. "That doesn't concern me." The officer swallowed. "But the way they're connected does." He rotated the holographic model. Dozens of weapon systems linked together in unusual configurations. Energy pathways looping in ways no Zytherian engineer would design. It looked messy, chaotic, illogical, and yet the power readings were climbing. "Commander," the officer whispered, "the reactor output is 4 times higher than it should be for a ship this size." Now the bridge grew quiet. Valek stepped closer to the display. "That's impossible." Another alert flashed across the console. A second officer spoke up. "Commander, we've detected an onboard artificial intelligence." Valek raised an eyebrow. "Many species use AI." "Yes, but this one is active." "Define active." The officer's voice dropped. "It's analyzing our scan patterns." Silence fell across the bridge. Valek stared at the display. "You're telling me the ship's AI is studying us?" "Yes, Commander." Another alert chimed. Then another. The AI's processing activity was rising rapidly. Data streams exploded across the screens. The Zytherians had scanned thousands of enemy ships in their history, but never had one responded. Volek's instincts finally began to whisper a warning. Stop the scan, but it was already too late. Inside the silent human warship, darkness vanished. Red emergency lights flickered to life. A calm digital voice echoed through the corridors. External scan detected. Enemy data acquired. Strategic analysis complete. Rows of cryogenic chambers unlocked with a hiss. Inside them, humans slowly began to wake. Soldiers, pilots, engineers. Their eyes opened as the AI continued speaking. Crew revival sequence initiated. Zytherian Dominion fleet confirmed. A pause, then the final line. Trap successfully triggered. Back on the Zytherian flagship, alarm suddenly erupted. Commander! Volek spun around. What now? The navigation officer looked terrified. Our systems are malfunctioning. Navigation controls are being overridden. Another officer shouted. The human vessel is powering up. Every eye turned toward the massive forward display. The drifting wreck was no longer silent. Its engines ignited. Power readings surged violently. Weapon systems began activating across its hull. Volek felt a chill crawl through his spine. That ship, his voice was barely above a whisper, was never abandoned. The sensor officer looked at the incoming data. Commander, yes, there's something else. Volek's jaw tightened. What is it? The officer pointed at the deep space sensors. New signals. Volek leaned forward. How many? The officer's voice shook. At first we thought it was background interference. The sensor map zoomed out. Dozens of new contact appeared. Then hundreds, emerging from hyperspace, slowly surrounding the Zytherian fleet. Volek's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't a lost ship. His eyes widened. It was bait. And far away in the darkness, human warships were arriving. If this moment gave you chills, comment HFY below, because what the Zytherian Dominion had just discovered was the most dangerous truth in the galaxy. Humans didn't win wars by having the best technology. They won by making sure the enemy made the first mistake. And the Dominion had just made theirs. The Zytherian bridge had gone completely silent. Moments ago, the officers of the Dominion's 9th Recon Fleet had been laughing at the idea of a lone human ship drifting near a dead star. Now, no one was laughing, because the drifting wreck they had scanned just minutes earlier was no longer drifting. It was alive. Energy surged through its battered hull. Reactor readings spiked far beyond what a vessel of its size should ever be capable of producing. Commander Volek stared at the tactical display as if the stars themselves had betrayed him. Report. His voice was calm, but everyone on the bridge could hear the tension beneath it. The sensor officer swallowed. The human vessel's reactor output has increased to 600% of expected capacity. Another alarm blared. Weapon systems activating across the hull. Volek's eyes narrowed. That ship was barely functioning 5 minutes ago. Yes, Commander. Then how is it suddenly combat ready? No one answered, because the truth was they didn't know, and that uncertainty was something the Zytherian Dominion rarely experienced. The sensor officer continued scanning. Commander, I'm detecting layered weapon configurations. Explain. The systems appear primitive individually. Kinetic cannons, rail accelerators, localized gravitic emitters. Volek crosses arms. None of those technologies threaten the Dominion fleet. The officer nodded slowly. That's what we thought. He rotated the holographic ship model again, but they aren't arranged normally. Energy pathways twisted through the ship in strange patterns. Weapons linked together through complex power routing systems. It looked chaotic, unrefined, messy, but the power output kept rising. Volek leaned closer. What am I looking at? The officer exhaled slowly. A modular combat architecture. Volek blinked once. That design philosophy is illegal in Dominion engineering. Yes, because it's unstable. Yes, because it's unpredictable. Yes, the officer finally looked directly at the commander, and because it can evolve mid-combat. That was when a second officer suddenly shouted, Commander! Volek turned. What now? The ship's AI just accessed our scan frequencies. Volek's expression hardened. How? We gave them access when we scanned their systems. The realization hit the bridge like a shockwave. Every scan beam, every sensor pulse, every analysis routine. The Zytherians had just handed their technological fingerprints directly to the enemy. And somewhere inside that human ship, something had been watching, learning, adapting, and that was the moment everything changed. Inside the human warship, the cryo bay lights glowed softly. Rows of cryogenic pods hissed open. Frost evaporated into the air as the first human stepped forward. Captain Elias Ward inhaled deeply. The air tasted cold, metallic, familiar. "How long?" he asked. The AI answered immediately. "Cryogenic suspension duration, 11 months, 14 days. Ward rubbed frost from his eyes. "And the bait?" "Successful." Around him, the crew continued waking. Pilots checking neural implants. Engineers moving toward reactor controls. Marines loading weapons. The AI continued its calm report. "Enemy identified. Zytherian Dominion reconnaissance fleet." Ward nodded once. "Fleet size, 19 capital ships, 42 escorts." Someone behind him whistled softly. "That's a lot of angry aliens." Ward didn't smile. "Perfect." He stepped toward the command console. "Did they take the scan?" "Yes, Captain." "Full spectrum?" "Yes." Ward finally allowed himself a small grin. "Good." He tapped the console. "Then they just gave us everything." And somewhere deep within the ship's core, the AI's processing clusters glowed brighter. Because the moment the Zytherians scanned the vessel, they had unknowingly fed the AI millions of data points. Weapon signatures, shield harmonics, targeting algorithms, fleet communication structures. The AI had spent the last 60 seconds doing something no alien computer could do. It was learning how the Dominion fought, and now it knew exactly how to break them. Back on the Zytherian flagship, panic was spreading quietly. "Commander," the sensor officer said, "we are detecting massive hyperspace disturbances." Volek turned slowly. "How massive?" The tactical officer enlarged the map. At first, the signals were faint. Background noise. Static. Then they grew stronger. Dozens of hyperspace tears began appearing at the edge of the system. Volek felt a chill crawl across his spine. "How many ships?" The officer hesitated. I can't get an exact number." Volek's voice sharpened. "Estimate." The officer looked pale. "More than 100. The bridge erupted in alarm chatter. "That's impossible. Humans can't deploy fleets that fast. They shouldn't even know we're here." Volek raised a hand. Silence returned instantly. His eyes remained fixed on the drifting human warship. And slowly, the realization began forming. This wasn't an accident. The officers looked at him. Volek spoke quietly. "We were meant to find that ship." A cold feeling spread through the room. "Commander," the sensor officer whispered, "the human vessel is transmitting." "Where?" "Everywhere." The signal burst across the system like a beacon. Encoded human military data, streamed into hyperspace, coordinates, enemy fleet structure, weapon telemetry, everything the Zytherians had revealed during the scan. Volek clenched his jaw. "They used us." Another officer whispered. "They scanned us back." And that was when the tactical display exploded with new contacts. Human warships poured out of hyperspace. Sleek destroyers, heavy carriers, strike cruisers, hundreds of engines igniting across the darkness. The Zytherian fleet had arrived expecting a routine patrol. Instead, they had flown directly into the center of a battlefield. On the human warship, Captain Ward watched the same tactical map appear. Blue icons filled the system. Human fleet signatures, admiral command groups, strike formations. Ward exhaled slowly. "Right on time." The AI spoke again. "Fleet command requesting tactical update." Ward leaned against the console. "Tell them the trap worked." A pause. Then he added quietly, "And tell them the Dominion just showed us exactly how they fight." Outside the viewport, space began to glow as more human ships arrived. Engines burned like newborn stars. And for the first time in centuries, the Zytherian Dominion found itself staring at something it had almost forgotten existed. A real enemy. Ward looked at the incoming Dominion fleet. "They thought we were weaker." The AI responded calmly. "They are technologically superior." Ward nodded. "Yeah." He cracked his knuckles. "But they've got one problem." "What problem, Captain?" Ward smiled faintly. "They fight logically." The AI processed that. "And humans?" Ward watched the Dominion fleet forming battle lines. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Humans fight to win." And across the battlefield, the first human weapons began charging. If you're standing with humanity right now, hit the like button. Because what the Dominion fleet was about to experience was something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that didn't rely on perfect technology. A species that relied on something far more dangerous. Unpredictable strategy. And as the Zytherian fleet prepared to open fire, their navigation systems suddenly failed completely. Ships began drifting out of formation. Command channels filled with error signals. Valek stared in disbelief. How? The sensor officer answered with trembling hands. Commander, the human AI is inside our network. Valek felt the cold grip of realization tighten. The trap had never been the ship. The trap was the scan. And now the Dominion fleet was fighting an enemy that already knew their weaknesses. And worse, was learning faster every second. Across the silent battlefield, two fleets now face each other. On one side, the Zytherian Dominion, ancient, powerful, masters of galactic warfare for nearly 3,000 years. On the other side, humanity, a young species, a reckless species, a species the Dominion had never truly taken seriously. But now, hundreds of human warships filled the darkness around the dead star. Engines burned like blue suns. Weapon arrays slowly rotated into firing position. And for the first time since the Dominion had discovered humanity, the balance of power in the system was no longer obvious. Commander Valek watched the tactical display with a growing sense of unease. Human ships were not forming traditional battle lines. They weren't grouping by class. They weren't aligning with standard fleet doctrine. Instead, they were moving in scattered clusters. Destroyers weaving between cruisers. Carriers drifting behind smaller escorts. Strike craft launching far earlier than any logical commander would allow. It looked messy, unorganized, almost chaotic. One of the Zytherian officers spoke quietly. Commander, their formation is inefficient. Another officer nodded. They're exposing multiple flanks. A third officer added confidently. This will be a simple engagement. But Valek didn't answer, because something about the human movement patterns felt wrong. Too fluid, too fast, like a swarm of predators circling prey. And that was when the first shot was fired. A human destroyer surged forward unexpectedly. Its engines flared bright as it accelerated straight toward the Zytherian front line. The bridge officers immediately reacted. Enemy ship approaching attack range. Valek remained calm. Destroy it. A Zytherian cruiser fired precise energy beam. A perfect shot. The human destroyer vanished in a burst of flame. Silence fell for half a second. Then the tactical officer frowned. Commander, the ship never fired. Valek's eyes narrowed. Then why approach? Before anyone could answer, another human vessel surged forward from the left flank. Then another, and another. 3 ships racing directly into Dominion weapon range. Energy beams flashed. Explosions lit the darkness. 3 more human ships destroyed. The Zytherian officers relaxed slightly. Commander, they're throwing ships away. Valek slowly shook his head. No. He pointed at the tactical display. Look closer. The officer zoomed in. The destroyed ships had drifted apart in 3 different directions before exploding. Their wreckage now floated across a wide area of space. One of the engineers suddenly gasped. Commander, those ships were carrying signal emitters. The realization struck like lightning. Before anyone could react, the debris fields activated. Hundreds of small devices ignited simultaneously. Electronic interference flooded the battlefield. Sensor arrays across the Dominion fleet suddenly filled with static. False targets. Phantom signals. Hundreds of fake human ships appeared across the tactical displays. The bridge erupted in confusion. Sensor accuracy dropping. Target locks failing. Multiple ghost signatures detected. Valek slammed his fist on the command rail. They sacrificed those ships to blind us. And that was when the human fleet attacked. From every direction, destroyers dove through the cloud of interference. Fighters streaked through the gaps in the Dominion formation. Rail cannons fired high-velocity slugs that ripped through shields before energy systems could react. The Dominion ships fired back with overwhelming power. Their weapons were superior, their targeting systems more precise. Every direct hit obliterated a human vessel. But the humans weren't fighting like a normal fleet. They never stayed still. They never held formation. Ships darted in and out of sense of blind spots. Some even deliberately rammed damaged Dominion escorts to disrupt the battle line. One Zytherian officer shouted in disbelief. Commander, they're using suicide maneuvers. Valek's jaw tightened. No. He watched carefully. They're using calculated sacrifice. Every lost human ship created an opening. Every destroyed fighter distracted a Dominion turret. Every explosion disrupted targeting for just a few seconds. And those seconds were enough. Human cruisers slipped through the chaos and unleashed concentrate rail barges. One Dominion escort ship shuddered as its shields collapsed. A second later it exploded. The first Zytherian ship destroyed in the battle. Silence hit the bridge. For centuries, the Dominion fleets had crushed every enemy with perfect efficiency. But now, a technologically inferior species had just taken down one of their warships. And the humans were only getting started. If this moment gave you chills, comment HFY below, because the Dominion was about to learn the most dangerous truth about humanity. Humans didn't need perfect technology. They needed opportunity. And humans were experts at creating it. Inside the original human bait ship, Captain Elias Ward watched the battle unfold. Human ships blinked out across the tactical display. Destroyed. Sacrificed. But the Dominion fleet formation was slowly breaking apart. Exactly as planned. Ward spoke quietly. AI probability update. The artificial intelligence answered instantly. Dominion fleet coordination reduced by 37%. Ward nodded. Good. Outside the viewport, human fighters streaked past like comets. The AI continued. Dominion tactical doctrine prioritizes structural order and predictable engagement patterns. Ward smiled faintly. Yeah, we notice. Another alert appeared on the screen. The AI's voice shifted slightly. New hyperspace signatures detected. Ward looked up. How many? The AI paused briefly. Large formation. The tactical map expanded. Dozens of new contacts appeared at the edge of the system. But these were not human ships. Their signatures were larger, heavier, more powerful. Ward's smile faded. Well, that didn't take long. The AI confirmed. Zytherian Dominion reinforcements have arrived. Across the battlefield, massive alien warships began emerging from hyperspace. Dreadnought-class vessels, command carriers, heavy battle platforms, ships far larger than anything currently in the system. On the Dominion flagship, Commander Volek, they're finally exhaled in relief. Our reinforcements have arrived. The massive dreadnought corvette slid into position beside his fleet. A warship so powerful it could level a planet's defenses alone. The Dominion officers relaxed. Now the battle would return to normal. Superior technology, superior firepower, superior numbers. Volek stared at the human fleet again. This ends now. But inside the human command ship, Captain Ward wasn't panicking. He simply watched the new arrivals appear on the tactical map. Then he quietly asked the AI one question. Did they bring the flagship? The AI answered, yes. Ward leaned back in his chair, a slow grin spreading across his face. Perfect. The AI processed that response. Captain, Dominion firepower now exceeds human fleet capacity by 240%. Ward nodded calmly. I know. Then he said the words that would soon terrify the entire Dominion command structure. Phase 2. The AI paused, then responded, understood. And across the battlefield, human ships suddenly changed their tactics completely. Because the first battle had never been about winning. It had been about teaching the Dominion how humans fight. And now, the real strategy was about to begin. The Dominion flagship trembled as alarms blared across the bridge. Commander Volek couldn't believe what he was seeing. His fleet, trained for centuries in flawless combat strategy, was collapsing around him, and all because of a single species they had underestimated. Commander! A junior officer shouted. Multiple capital ships have fallen. Sensors show breaches in shield integrity across the front line. Volek's jaw tightened. He had trained for thousands of scenarios, yet none had prepared him for this. Across the battlefield, human warships moved like predators. Their formations appeared chaotic, but every movement had purpose. Decoy vessels drew fire while hidden strike teams slipped past shield grids. Missiles detonated not just to destroy, but to force the Dominion to miscalculate, to react. One of the most horrifying realizations came when the Dominion tactical officer spoke, his voice trembling. They're using our own data against us. Volek froze. Explain. Sir, the ship we scanned. It wasn't just bait. It was a data relay. Every scan we performed was transmitted back to the human fleet. Every shield frequency, weapon range, firing sequence analyzed and exploited. The bridge went silent. Officers exchanged horrified glances. Volek clenched his fists. They've been watching us the entire time, learning from our tactics, and now they've adapted. Outside, The space around the dead star was chaos incarnate. Human ships, previously thought weak, began striking with precision that defied their perceived technology. They combined weapon systems in ways the Dominion had never accounted for. Kinetic and energy weapons fired simultaneously, creating cascading damage to ships whose shields were supposed to be impenetrable. Fighter squadrons weaved through gaps in point defense grids, striking at the most vulnerable nodes. Cytherian dreadnoughts fired everything they had, beams, missiles, gravitic disruptors, yet still the humans adapted mid-battle. When a salvo landed, the next wave approached differently, countering what the Dominion expected. And then the psychological blow came. The human fleet began broadcasting false signals, decoys, and phantom ships, forcing Dominion vessels to fire at empty space. Entire squadrons collided with one another, thinking they were engaging real targets. The Dominion fleet, once the pinnacle of military perfection, descended into chaos. On the Dominion flagship, Commander Volek realized the worst. This isn't just a battle. It's a lesson, and we're failing. Meanwhile, aboard the human command ship, Captain Elias Ward observed everything with clinical precision. His AI had analyzed the Dominion fleet's every reaction from the moment they scanned a human-bait ship. Every vulnerability, every predictable pattern, every overconfidence. Phase 2, Ward murmured. The AI responded instantly. Dominion command structures compromised. Probability of fleet collapse, 73%. Ward smiled faintly. Good. Then it's time to teach them what humans really do. Outside, human cruisers split into multiple vectors, striking from angles the Dominion had no protocol for. Destroyers performed coordinated sacrificial maneuvers, intentionally drawing enemy fire, while heavy ships slipped past and targeted the most critical systems. "Commander," a Dominion officer yelled, "our shields, they're failing across 3 sectors." Volek slammed a fist against the console. "How is this possible? They should not have the firepower to do this." "They don't," the tactical officer said. "It's not firepower. It's strategy. They're unpredictable, unrelenting, and they sacrifice without hesitation." Volek's mind raced. "They're not just fighting. They're evolving during the battle." "Commander," the sensor officer said in a trembling voice, "new human fleets are emerging from hyperspace." Volek's eyes widened. "How many?" "Too many to count." Across the void, the human reinforcements moved with terrifying precision. Their numbers grew, yet they didn't overwhelm recklessly. They struck strategically, exploiting the weaknesses revealed by the Dominion's own scans. And then the ultimate shock came. Dominion communications began failing. Ships lost contact with one another. Turrets misfired. Dreadnoughts collided. Fleet cohesion crumbled. Volek Dar, the unflinching veteran of countless battles, felt a chill run down his spine. "They aren't just attacking us," he whispered. "They're teaching us how to lose." On the human flagship, Captain Ward watched the Dominion fleet falter. "Initiate Phase 3, he ordered. The AI acknowledged instantly. Dominion morale decreasing. Enemy response patterns predictable. Tactical advantage. Humans 89%. Ward's smile widened. "The galaxy thinks it knows how war works. Let's show them it's never understood us." And in the void of space, the Dominion fleet realized something terrifying. Humanity didn't just fight. They adapted, evolved, and turned every enemy move into a weapon against them. To be continued. If this part gave you chills, comment HFY below. The Dominion reinforcements arrived like a tidal wave of steel and fire. Massive dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace, their hulls bristling with weapons that could level planets. Carriers deployed squadrons of advanced fighters, and super-heavy cruisers positioned themselves to crush anything smaller. The Cytherian commanders believed the tide of the battle had finally turned in their favor. Commander Volek there allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. "Finally," he muttered, "the humans will be broken." But the human fleet had been waiting for this moment. Inside the human command ship, Captain Elias Ward observed the incoming reinforcements. Hundreds of Dominion warships, the pinnacle of galactic engineering, moving with confidence toward their prey. And yet, Ward's smile was calm, almost serene. "AI," he said, "update on incoming fleet." "Confirm, Captain. Reinforcements. 74 capital-class ships, 126 escorts. Estimated firepower exceeds current human fleet by 240%. Ward leaned back. "Perfect. Let's see how they react when the rules change." Because that was a human advantage. The rules never stayed the same. As the Dominion fleet advanced, the humans shifted their formations. Fleets that seemed chaotic now revealed patterns of lethal precision. Sacrificial destroyers flanked the dreadnoughts, drawing their most powerful weapons. Meanwhile, strike cruisers darted into blind spots, unleashing concentrated rail barges. Every human loss was calculated, every move unpredictable. Dominion officers realized too late that they were fighting control chaos, a strategy the Zytherians had never encountered. "Commander!" a tactical officer shouted, panic in his voice. "Our flanks are compromised." Shields dropping on the left, targeting grids, offline on the right. Volek slammed a fist on the console. "They adapt every time we respond." Indeed, the humans were evolving in real time. The AI aboard the bait ship had fed data to the fleet, allowing each unit to learn from the Dominion's reactions instantly. Every miscalculation by the Zytherians was exploited. Every predictable maneuver became a trap. One of the Dominion captains shouted, disbelief in his voice. "They're adjusting mid-battle. How is this possible? They're learning faster than we can fire." And that was when the first hyperspace weapon was deployed. Not by humans. Not yet. From the darkness of deep space, the humans launched a gravitic disruptor array, a weapon the Dominion had thought impossible for a species of this size. It rippled through the battlefield, distorting space itself around multiple dreadnoughts. Shields failed. Navigation systems went haywire. Entire formations collided. Volek's eyes widened. "Impossible! They shouldn't have the capability." "They do," the sensor officer whispered. "Because they don't fight like we expect. They don't follow logic. They create opportunities from our assumptions." Across the human fleet, Captain Ward monitored the effects. Ships adapted instantly to the feedback from the disruptors, exploiting openings that would have been death sentences under conventional tactics. Every Dominion ship that moved predictably was struck. Every unexpected move was countered with preemptive precision. "Prepare Phase 2, Ward said quietly. "Understood, Captain," the AI responded. The Dominion fleet, despite its overwhelming firepower, began to crumble. Shields overloaded, weapons misfired, communication lines jammed. Chaos reigned where the Zytherians had once relied on perfect order. Volek stared at the tactical display. They're not just surviving, they're winning. And the most terrifying thought hit him. Every battle they fought, the humans learned, adapted, and became stronger. On board the human command ship, Ward's crew moved with surgical precision. Pilots reported targets neutralized. Engineers recalibrated weapons on the fly. Marines readied boarding parties. And the AI processed each Dominion reaction, feeding the fleet with predictive strategies in real time. "Captain," the AI reported, "fleet cohesion among the Dominion ships is decreasing exponentially. Estimated collapse in 27 minutes. Ward nodded. "Good. Let them feel the cost of underestimating us." Because that was a human secret. Survival wasn't just about firepower. It was about adaptation, intelligence, and willpower. Every human ship, every maneuver, every sacrifice was part of a strategy that no alien, no matter how technologically superior, could predict. Volek Thar's mind raced. Centuries of military doctrine, centuries of perfect strategy, all crumbling before a species they had deemed weak. "They're not fighting for dominance," a junior officer said, voice trembling. "They're fighting to survive, and they're better at it than us." Ward's voice came through the comms network, calm and commanding. "The galaxy isn't ready for what humans can do next. Remember this, Dominion. Never underestimate us again." And above the chaos of battlefield, a single truth became clear to the Dominion. Humanity doesn't just fight, they evolve. To be continued. If this part gave you chills, comment HFY below. The Dominion had one final weapon. A Doomsday-class installation hidden in the outer system, rumored to be capable of annihilating an entire star system. Its supercharged energy cannon could wipe fleets off the map in a single strike. Commander Volek had activated it. Every officer aboard the flagship knew the moment they fired, the human fleet would be obliterated. "Fire control online," one shouted, ready to target the human fleet. Volek allowed himself a small smirk. Finally, perfection will crush chaos. But the humans didn't flinch. Not a single ship scattered. Not a single pilot panicked. Captain Elias Ward stood at the command console of the bait ship, watching the massive energy signature spike across the viewport. The weapon would fire within seconds. "AI," Ward said calmly, "prepare countermeasures." The AI's holographic display shimmered. Calculating probability of survival against star-level energy discharge, 2.7%. Ward tilted his head, a slight grin forming. "And yet we still have options." Across the fleet, human ships began to move unpredictably. Destroyers that had been considered sacrificial now acted as decoys, drawing the energy blast away from the main force. Fighters darted through gaps, masking the true locations of heavy cruisers. Every maneuver was precise, yet appeared random. The Dominion fired. The weapon unleashed a concentrated energy beam, a bolt that could vaporize planets. It struck the decoy formation, obliterating dozens of human vessels in a brilliant flash. The Dominion officers cheered. Victory was certain. Then the AI spoke. Beam trajectory compromised. Firing sequence intercepted. Energy reflection pattern calculated. What does that mean? Ward asked. The AI's voice was calm. The blast has been partially redirected. Dominion ships in the front line now face collateral damage. Across the battlefield, the impossible happened. The superweapons beam ripped through the front line of the Dominion fleet. Dreadnoughts that should have been impervious were ripped apart. Capital ships collided as their shields failed. Chaos spread faster than anyone could react. Volek's jaw dropped. Impossible. The weapon, it's attacking us. The tactical officer whispered. It's human strategy. They've turned our perfection against us. Ward leaned back, watching the Dominion fleet descend into chaos. Every rigid command, every predictable tactic, we've studied it, learned it, and used it against them. The humans moved with deadly precision, while the Dominion fleet panicked. Heavy cruisers struck from angles no one expected. Fighters attacked sensor grids. Missiles detonated to trigger chain reactions in overlapping shield fields. The entire fleet became a single organism, flowing around danger, exploiting weakness and learning in real time. Volek's mind raced. They adapt faster than anything in the galaxy. Every time we react, they've already countered. Yes, Commander, said the sensor officer, voice trembling. We are predictable and they are exploiting it. Across the fleet, Dominion ships attempted to regroup, but human AI had calculated every possible maneuver. Every escape route was blocked. Every defensive formation rendered useless. Ward's voice rang calmly through the comms. This is the moment the galaxy learns a truth it has ignored for centuries. The Dominion fleet was technologically superior. Their weapons could obliterate anything. But perfection was their weakness. And humans thrived in chaos, improvisation, and unpredictability. Volek watched as his once mighty fleet began to fracture. Ship after ship was disabled or destroyed, not just by firepower, but by strategy, intelligence, and the indomitable will of a species that refused to be beaten. They're not just fighting, whispered a junior officer. They're teaching us how we fail. And Captain Ward smiled, knowing the humans had done what no one else could. They underestimated us, he said softly. And that is their first mistake. To be continued. If you're amazed by how humans turn chaos into victory, hit like and comment HFY below. The battlefield was a nightmare of fire and twisted metal. The Zytherian Dominion, once the unchallenged rulers of the galaxy, were now scattered, disorganized, and panicking. Capital ships drifted aimlessly, their shields overloaded, weapon systems offline. Smaller vessels collided or spun helplessly in space. Commander Volek had never felt fear like this. For centuries, the Dominion had crushed every enemy. Planets, fleets, civilizations, all fell before them. And yet here they were, being dismantled by a species they considered weak, unprepared, and primitive. Volek stared at the viewports. How is this possible, he whispered. One of his officers spoke, voice shaking. Commander, they're not just attacking. They're controlling the battlefield. Every time we try to regroup, they've already predicted it. Volek's hands tightened around the command rail. They're learning faster than we can act. At the center of the chaos, Captain Elias Ward watched the Dominion flagship carefully. The massive warship was still functional, but barely. Its dreadnought escorts were shattered, its command structure fractured. The Dominion had one final chance. Volek himself, controlling what remained of his forces. Ward turned to the AI. Prepare for direct engagement. Target flagship first. Minimize collateral damage to our own fleet. The AI's holographic display shimmered. Probability of success against primary target, 82%. Crew survivability, 91%. Ward nodded. Good. Initiate Phase 4. Human warships converged on the Dominion flagship with lethal precision. Fighters darted through gaps in energy shields. Rail cannons struck weak points identified by the AI. The massive vessel rocked from each calculated hit, its shields flickering under repeated pressure. Volek barked orders, trying to regain control. Divert fire, target their cruisers. Focus everything on the command vessel. But it was too late. The humans had already learned every maneuver the Dominion could make. They struck from angles that no Zytherian war doctrine accounted for. Every countermeasure Valek deployed was anticipated and neutralized. A junior officer whispered in disbelief, "Sir, how? How can a primitive species do this? Their ships shouldn't even withstand this assault." Valek's voice was low, almost a hiss, because they're not just ships, they're humans, and humans fight differently. They fight with will. On the human flagship, Ward watched the flagship shudder under sustained fire. "Open comms," he said calmly. A channel opened directly to Valek Thar. The Dominion commander's image flickered on the display. His eyes were wide, his face pale. "You," he said, voice strained. How can a primitive species defeat us?" Ward leaned forward, calm and measured. "Because you tried to understand our technology, but you never understood us." The Dominion flagship groaned under another coordinated volley. Its shields failed entirely. Systems sparked. Engines faltered, and slowly, with a shuddering groan, the great vessel began to break apart. Valek's final words were a whisper, almost lost amidst the explosions. "Impossible, humans." And then the flagship disintegrated. Silence fell, not the quiet of victory, but the stunned silence of an empire that had realized it had been bested. Across the battlefield, human ships regrouped. Minimal losses, calculated strikes, perfect timing. Every vessel intact and ready for the next move. Ward looked at the tactical display. The Dominion fleet was scattered, broken, and leaderless. Across the galaxy, centuries of assumed superiority had collapsed in mere hours. He turned to the crew. "Prepare to secure the system. Send a message to all nearby human fleets. The battle is won, but the war has only just begun." The AI spoke softly. "Captain, the Dominion will remember this day. Probability of future aggression extremely high. Humanity's reputation will now precede it." Ward nodded. "Let them remember. Let every civilization in the galaxy know. Humans fight with intelligence, with unity, and with an unyielding will." And in that moment, the galaxy realized a terrifying truth. Humanity is not to be underestimated. If you felt that epic, hit like and comment HFY to stand with humanity. The battlefield had gone quiet. The Dominion fleet was shattered. Scattered ships drifted among the debris, many crippled beyond repair. Command structures were gone. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Zytherian Dominion was in retreat. Across the galaxy, word spread. Recordings of the battle were replayed in thousands of systems. Every civilization, from minor trade worlds to ancient empires, saw the same truth. Humanity had faced the most advanced species in the galaxy, and won. Inside the human flagship, Captain Elias Ward surveyed the wreckage. The stars outside were still, but the silence carried a weight heavier than any weapon fire. "Captain," the AI spoke softly. "Battlefield assessment. Human loss is minimal. Dominion fleet collapse confirmed. Probability of immediate retaliation low. Strategic advantage. Humans 97%. Ward nodded slowly. "Good. Send a message to all human fleets and colonies." The AI transmitted a simple, clear statement across the galactic communications network. "We did not start this war, but we will always finish it." For hours, systems across the Dominion's former territories replayed the words, trying to grasp their meaning. Humans, the species that had been underestimated for centuries, had proven that victory was not determined by technology alone. It was determined by spirit, by intelligence, by sacrifice, by unity. Human fleets moved carefully through the debris, securing Dominion systems, rescuing prisoners, and repairing what could be salvaged. Every act carried a message. Humanity had won not through sheer force, but through strategy, courage, and adaptability. On board the flagship, Ward addressed the remaining crew. "Remember this," he said, voice firm, carrying across command deck. "Every battle we fight, every enemy we face, we win not because of what we have, but because of who we are. Humans adapt. Humans evolve. Humans never surrender." Around him, the crew stood in silent agreement, eyes sharp, hearts steady. Every human knew the truth. The galaxy had misjudged them, and never again would they allow it. Meanwhile, deep within the remnants of Dominion territory, alien commanders reviewed the battle logs. The realization was chilling. The humans did not fight as they expected. They were unpredictable. They learned. They adapted. And most terrifying of all, they were relentless. One Dominion officer muttered quietly, almost in disbelief, "They are not dangerous because of their weapons. They are dangerous because of their will." Across the galaxy, Civilizations began whispering the same warning. Human fleets would not only defend their systems, they would innovate, evolve, and strike when least expected. Captain Ward watched the stars outside, a faint smile crossing his face. "The galaxy underestimated humanity once," he said softly, "and it will never make that mistake again." The human fleet set course for home, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. The moral was clear. Strength is not measured by size or technology, but by ingenuity, unity, and an unbreakable spirit. And to every viewer across the galaxy watching the story unfold, stand with humanity, fight smart, adapt, sacrifice, unite, and never, ever be underestimated. If this story gave you chills, hit like, subscribe, and share. Humanity has already begun its rise, and the galaxy will never forget it. HFY,